안녕 친구들. I hope you've been well. All right. So, as some of you may have read in my 2 weeks ago blog, in order for me to stop looking that way, as I'm sure many of you have noticed in my previous videos, I asked my youngest sister, "Hey, can you just check it out?" No one in my family or in my personal life really watches these videos. I think they find it very odd that I would even venture into YouTube and film and upload these videos. But anyhow, so I did ask my youngest sister, hey, just kind of out of the blue, I just wanted some feedback from her. And she said, you tend to look to the side a lot, which is very distracting. And so, as I mentioned in my blog, I have actually stuck a little bright yellow sticker right above my webcam. So hopefully if I focus on that, it'll look as though I'm looking directly at you and talking and not veering to the left or what have you. So we'll kind of take a look and try if this works better. But anyway, I am here to do a quick recap of the Goo Family book, episodes 21 and 22. I did watch it and I did enjoy it. And I will say I saw this after the I think I saw it after episode 12 of The Master's Son. Because by now, I think what I'm assuming is that those of you who watch the Goo Family book recaps now, the video recaps that I'm making, you're really from my blog. So I figure the twinkles are the ones, like what, 20 some of you are the ones really watching this. And so you kind of know where we're at and stuff. But anyway, I will say watching 21 and 22 helped me get out of this kind of the Master's Son craze that I was in at the end of, I believe, episode 12, I want to say. Might have been that, yes. But anyway, so these recaps are going to be short, of course, because the series has been over for I don't know how long, but I think it's been like, what, 2-3 months now? But anyway, the basic rundown, if you'll remember, is of episode 21. We have, we pick up where, Wol Ryung is here, and then the mom is here, and then Kang Chi comes right in between and kind of, tries to fight off Wol Ryung, and they're fighting, and, of course, Seowa's in the background thinking, oh my gosh, my husband and my child are fighting, what looks like to the death and what have you. And in the midst of that, what's really great is that as two, I guess, super, natural beings fight each other, Kang Chi happens to notice that there are a group of assassins who are aiming their bows at Wol Ryung. And so in a very heroic gesture, also one designed to protect his father, he intercepts, he puts himself between the archers and Wol Ryung. And even though he may have done that instinctively, what I appreciated was the fact that on some level he also knew that he would heal, but his father wouldn't. And so he puts himself in between them. And I thought that was just, I knew he was going to do it, of course, but it certainly, that knowledge doesn't lessen the fact that the son did take those, bow and arrows for his father. Or, those arrows for his father. And so, Kang Chi gets shot, and then Wol Ryung then stops the fight. He realizes what his son has done, or I don't even know if he realizes yet at that point that, Kang Chi is his son, right? But he ends up killing pretty much all of the, archers. And then Wol Ryung, for as far as they're concerned, disappears. But what we see is that Wol Ryung is still kind of hidden in the forest, watching things unfold. Well, Kang Chi staggers down to the floor, and then Seowa's there, trying to, hug him, take care of him, or what have you. And then at that point, Yeol, Kwon, and I believe Taeseo arrive on the scene. And it's really cute because as Yeol and Kwon were trying to fight off the guys, they got really tired, right? And they were thinking, oh my gosh, it's endless and, whatnot. And then Taeseo comes into the rescue. And it's just so cute the way they, as Taeseo's fighting, Kwon's like, Taeseo Doryong, and, he totally realizes. And this, I think, is indicative of how great a swordsman Kwon is, in the sense that he doesn't forget the swordsmanship of, certain people, right? But anyway, they start to fight, and then they eventually retreat because it looks like there's no end in sight. And then they rejoin Kang Chi, and at which point they see Kang Chi literally with all of those arrows on his back. And so Yeol is hugging Kang Chi while Kwon goes to the back and literally pulls out those arrows. And so even though we know that Kang Chi is going to heal, it certainly doesn't lessen the pain that he is enduring at that point. They go back to the training camp or the academy, and then there's this really sweet, idyllic moment in some respect where Kang Chi is then able to fully experience, albeit very briefly, the love of his mother and the care and comfort from her and such. But what we find out then, and at that point, Kang Chi, I think, expresses this desire to never have her leave his side and so on, if memory serves. It's been about 2-3 weeks since I saw this episode, but what I found so heartbreaking in this episode is that as far as Hoa is concerned, she's seen Wol Ryung, she knows what she has to do, and she considers it her penance, if you will, to finish the job so that she can return her husband to his original state and to not only prevent further human deaths, but also to take that curse away from her husband, which she knows is going to last for 1,000 years or so. And so she starts carrying around, of course, the wooden stake. And so while Kang Chi is sleeping and recovering, she tells Yeol, that she entrusts her son into her care. And she tells her, and it's so heartbreaking the way she says, I look at you and you are so much more mature and you love my son more than I did my husband. And it makes you have just a little glimpse of all of the what ifs that were probably running through her mind throughout her life after, she had lost her husband. But anyway, she, then apprises Tam Pyongjun of her intentions, and then during which time the village has been evacuated because Wol Ryung is now again on the rampage. And, it's just this innate thing where he just feels the need to kill and suck the spirit or the, ki out of everyone. So while everyone knows that Wol Ryung is headed towards the 100 years in, and so there's some sort of a barricade with all of the magistrates out there, soldiers and whatnot, and into this barricade, Seowa intercepts as Wol Ryung shows up, and then as she tries to stop him, Wol Ryung at some point, literally just for that moment when she calls out his name and such, he's able to wake up and realize what the heck is going on, and he remembers her, and then so you see this very beautiful moment where he's embracing her. And during which time, Kang Chi has woken up, he finds out what his mother's planning on doing, jerks, awake, and he tries running to, stop her. And as he runs to her place, Lee Sun-shin stops him. And I can't remember if Seowa had asked Lee Sun-shin as well, I entrust my son into your care, right? But Lee Sun-shin stops him and he says, this was your mother's choice, this was your mother's wish, that you not interfere. And I love the fact that in many respects, Kang Chi had earlier on said to Tam Pyongjun, when he had faced off with him, I wish the first generation adults would just take care of their business and allow us second generation youngsters to just deal with our lives and not be burdened by the past of your mistakes and your tragedies, right? And Seowa, even though she, didn't hear that, is fully doing that. And at this point, Kang Chi's like, no, and he's trying to run to stop his mother, and just the desperation and the, sense of loss and all of that. Lee Seung-gi has come a long way in acting since I first saw him in Nonstop. I think he was in Nonstop 5. But yeah, so as he's trying to go, Lee Sun-shin stops him and he says, this was your mother's wish. She wants it to end with her. She doesn't want to bring the past of her and your father's mistakes and tragedy into your life, right? And you see just Kang Chi sink to the floor and Lee Sun-shin just taking care of him or comforting him. And I just remember watching that scene thinking to myself, Lee Sun-shin just, I think I've mentioned this before, that I think Lee Sun-shin is just this incredible role model. And the writer just imbues him with so many incredibly wise sayings, profound sayings that give insight into the human condition and what humanity is capable of and what humanity, the good side and the bad side. And yeah, I was just like, I just wanted to see that scene over and over again. But anyhow, so Kang Chi is literally, he knows he can't go. And so after he, cries as he wishes, to his heart's content in Lee Sun-shin's arms, he walks slowly back. And when he arrives at the training camp, it's to find Yeol with the umbrella waiting for him. And she says, "You're back?" And he says, "I'm back." And she's like, "Are you okay?" And he says something to the effect that it's been a really long day, which it's such an understatement, but loaded with so much meaning, right? And then they hug each other, and then Kang Chi cries and she comforts him. And so when we move into episode 22, it's to find Kang Chi sleeping in his little blanket and Yeol on the floor right next to him, right? And he just looks at her and he's like, you could tell he's thinking, why are you next to me? It's in the morning. You're in my room. And so he ends up talking to her gently. He's like, Yoda. And then she's like, still sleeping. And she's like, oh. And he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, you were crying so much last night that I, stuck around to comfort you, right? And as they're talking, it's so cute because he's counting to himself, right? And then when he gets to 3, Yoda's eyes like pop open, and she's like, oh, it's morning, because he said Yoda 아침이 good. It's like morning time, right? She wakes up and she's thinking, oh my god, it's morning. I spent the entire night here with you, right? And then into the scene, Kwon walks in, or tries to walk in, right? Because Kwon's like, hey Kang Chi, are you awake? And then so Kang Chi stuffs Yoda under his blanket and then pretends to be sleeping. Kwon comes in, sees the umbrella, sees Kang Chi sleeping, but he sees the umbrella propped on the wall. And of course, Kwon knows something's up, so he pretends that he's closed the door. And then Kang Chi wakes up, wakes up, and then Yeol is like, oh, do you think he's gone? And then of course, Kwon catches him in the act, and he assumes certain things, of course, right? And then as Kwon pounces on Kang Chi, about to pummel him into the ground, Yeol's governess or instructor comes in, right? And then she assumes the worst because Kwon is on the floor on top of Kang Chi, and she thinks, oh, and then Kwon's like, it's not that at all, and then she's like, what? And then the governess leaves, right? Well, what's funny is as Kwon tries to explain, saying, Yorashi, you need to go and explain. She's like, what? Do you see how dangerous it is to assume certain things, right? And, as a very pointed remark, saying you shouldn't have assumed the worst of me and Kang Chi as well, right? So anyway, into the scene though, the big moment really of episode 22 is the fact that Seo wakes up in the moonlight garden, Wol Ryung's place, and just very beautiful. I will go on record saying that as much as I loved this series, I think episode 1 and 2, it was very different from the second generation story. It really captured my interest. I think there was a level of, I can't explain it. There was a certain level of intensity or a sense of epic storytelling associated with the first generation. And so it was really with kind of a bittersweet sense of nostalgia for what could have been for me to watch Seo in that garden again. And what's really heartbreaking, I think it was in episode 21 when Seo was explaining to Kang Chi that after she had been, after she recovered from, trying to kill Cho Kwon-eun, she had gone back into the woods to try to find the Moonlight Garden so that she could, find Kang Chi again and raise him herself and all of this. And she said that the mountains wouldn't let her. She must have walked over and over 100 times trying to find the entrance to the Moonlight Garden. She said that she couldn't. And just the heartbreak that she must have felt knowing that she couldn't find him and all of this stuff. And a part of me at that point said, why didn't you go find Sojong? Did you not know how to find Sojong? And maybe she didn't. But just the sense that we had always thought that she had just given Kang Chi to, Sojong. But to realize at the end that after she had dealt with Chogonun, that she came to her senses and realized that she really did treasure Kang Chi and she wanted to raise him as her own. And then to realize that she couldn't even find him and had no choice but to just assume that Sojong had, kept his word and, all of this stuff, right? So anyway, episode 22, we see her in the Moonlight Garden finally, and, when she had been so desperately, 20, however many years ago, been trying to find this place, right? And so she goes out to look, and there's just this incredible sense of flashback and remembering. And then she sees Wol Ryung still in his black, cursed kind of persona, and he says, something to the effect of like, be well or whatnot. And he's like, I remember you, but I don't know for how long, right? And as he's about to leave, she says to him, and it's that whole thing of, 미안하다, 사랑한다 thing, right? I'm sorry, I love you, that kind of thing. But she said that I want you to know that I did love you, and, as you live, I hope that you will remember me. And it's just this incredibly beautiful scene where you're just kind of like, oh, don't do it. But she's got to, and, all of this stuff. But she says, I hope that you'll remember me. And I think she says something to the effect of like, forgive me because I wasn't mature enough to accept your love and to care for your love the way I needed to and such. And then she plunges that wooden stake into her heart. And then Wol Ryung, as he walks away, senses that she's about to do something, turns back and rushes to her. And of course, then the intensity and all of that the young Wol Ryung had for Seowa when they were first married and such, you see that again, and he's trying to take the stake out from her, in the hopes that maybe it's not a fatal blow, but, Seowa very determined, keeps that stake in her heart, and that tug of war between husband and wife, and just so heartbreaking to watch. But anyway, she eventually dies, and as, they spend the last moments together in each other's arms, you see Seowa very young, and then Wol Ryung returning to his former self, and just crying and all of this stuff. So I did appreciate the fact that the story took us to the original. The tragedy and the resolution remained with those two, and I love the fact, even though I was like, no, Kang Chi just found you, Mom, how could you do this? That it remained very much a mother-father, or Seowa and Wol Ryung issue. Anyway, so at that point, Wol Ryung goes to see Sojong. Sojong then, rejoices because his friend has returned. And then Sojong seeks out Kang Chi at the academy, and he says, Kang Chi, there's someone who wants to see you. And when Kang Chi looks, it's Wol Ryung. And, it's for the first time that, Kang Chi's had to say goodbye to his mother. And then to realize that his father is there. And it's that alpha male thing, but, a look of understanding passes between them, and then Kang Chi understands that, his father, really, this is it, and he says, will I see you? And, Wol Ryung says, probably this is the last time, that I will be seeing you. And because I was like so excited, honestly, I was thinking, how cool is it that two Kumios are going to be around, father son. Maybe they can go through all of eternity, teaching each other all of these things. And I was thinking, Wol Ryung, there's so much your son could learn from you and all of this stuff. But as far as Wol Ryung is concerned, he's not really vested in Kang Chi. And I don't necessarily know if it's because of perhaps a father's love, a man's love for his wife superseding his, love and devotion for his offspring. But he, Wol Ryung pretty much says to Kang Chi, this is probably it. And then as Kang Chi is about to, he wants some sort of meaningful interaction with his father. And so, Wol Ryung says something to the effect of, don't fear. Because once you give into fear, you'll lose everything. And that's actually something that Kang Chi starts to hear in his head as he has to then deal with Yaoi. But anyway, so Wol Ryung goes back to the midnight garden, and he had basically told Kang Chi, I'm going to be with your mother now for all of eternity. And I'm just thinking, I don't like the sound of that. And basically he goes to the midnight garden, and then I don't know what you guys thought, but as I saw him do what he did, just torn emotions, because I know that he loved her. But, just the, for me, the sense of what could have been with him and Kang Chi, just, I wanted to say, couldn't you have put off maybe for a year, maybe put Sawa in stasis on her own, and maybe spent some time with your son, right? But anyway, Wol Ryung, really to indicate that he only has a heart for Sawa, perhaps. He has her on their bed, and I guess you can call it symbolically their marriage bed, but he has her there, surrounded by flowers, and then he lies next to her, and then he calls the Kumyo fireflies, if you will, and then he puts the both of them into eternal stasis. And because we know Wol Ryung can't kill himself, and so that was his way of being with her side by side, preserving her memory and preserving their memory together. And just, it was really, I know that symbolically it's supposed to be this beautiful thing, but a part of me just, beautiful as it was, I was like, but Kang Chi, you could have spent so much time with Kang Chi. He has so much to learn. He just lost one parent. Why are you then having him lose another, But anyway, so in the interim, though, as Tan Pyeong-jun tells Yeol that, at this point now, you really should let Kang Chi go so that he can go and find Kugasal. Things have now resolved, so you really need to let him go. And so Yeol says to her father, give me 3 days, right? Well, in the meantime, as Yeol, because she says to Kang Chi, hey, I'll give you 3 wishes, right? And so Kang Chi is so cute because he's like, first wish, I want to eat pop from that you've made, right? So it's so cute because Yeol and her teacher, they go and her governess into the kitchen, the master kitchen, the master kitchen or kitchen master's domain, and they break so many dishes and bowls, right? And so Yeol finally learns how to make rice, and it's so cute because wish number 1 completed, she gives it to Kang Chi, and Kang Chi's like, she's like, I have a surprise for you, and then she goes, John, and then he's like, it's literally pop. She took it literally, pop and kimchi, right? And he's like, this is it. And she's like, do you know how long it took me to make this pop, right? And so she's like, it's really yummy. It's like, So Kang Chi then bites into it and he's like, okay, it's really good. And then crunch. Because in the olden days, now rice is very well processed. And so you don't have any, pebbles in there. But in the olden days, one of the reasons why people used to wash rice so much was because there were still all those pebbles, right? And so the trick back then to indicate your skill at rice making was to wash so that all the pebbles would be gone, and then of course the actual cooking itself to make sure that the rice came out really yummy and stuff. Yes, I'm old enough to remember those days when the rice wasn't as well processed. But anyhow, so he bites into it, and Yeol's like, spit it out, spit it out. And Kang Chi's like, no, my woman made this for me and it's really good. And he swallows the pebbles and you just sit back and you're just thinking, wow, you're a good guy, Kang Chi, right? But anyway, as they think about, wish number two, and I think wish number two is as they infiltrate the 100 years in on some mission, Kang Chi, because he learns from Sojong that Yeol can get hurt. He doesn't want Yeol to get hurt. And so he tells her, my wish number two, that you just remain here and not come and stuff, right? And so Yeol's like, what? And he's like, Yeol, that's my wish number two. Okay, please stay here. I'll return and stuff. And so Yeol stays. And then in the midst of that, though, somehow, people show up. Yeol has no choice to fight. And then she goes to join in on Kang Chi and Kun's fighting. But what happens is, Kang Chi at that point has morphed into his Kumyo self. And so all he's sensing is kind of the bloodlust kind of thing. And so before he realizes it, he ends up swiping at Yeol, thinking that she's another assailant. And her sword clatters to the floor, and then he kind of stops in shock because he realized some of his claw has, torn into her upper arm. And at that point, Kang Chi is stunned, and he realizes that no amount of carefulness on his part can stop the fate, the destiny thing from happening. And so when Yeol is better, and I think what happens is he knew about this before when he met Sojong or such. But anyway, when that happens, he then tells her, that's it. My third wish is for you to just break up with me. Because she's like, because he says, you knew this. How could you have continued on this road with me knowing this? And Yeol's like, I'm not going to not embrace someone that I could, the love of my life just because of the prophecy. And he said, you could die. And she's like, yeah, but so can you, and we could die from illnesses or whatever, right? Because Kang Chi astutely realizes he's immortal, she's not. So if that prophecy were to come true, who's going to die? Her, of course, right? And so episode 22 ends climactically with him saying, my third wish is for you to leave. Okay, and then that's how it ends. So anyway, I think for me, the overriding kind of sense from 21 and 22 really was the fact that Kang Chi had, for a brief moment, a meaningful moment with his mother, and then a meaningful moment with his father, and his, sense of loss very quickly thereafter. And episode 22, you see literally Kang Chi having to deal with, again, the loss of his woman, because basically he thought, mom and dad are gone, but as long as I have Yeol, it would be okay. And in 22, we see him having to deal with the realization that he needs to leave, or at least in his mind, that he needs to leave in order to protect her because he doesn't want her to die. Although, I understand that, but I'm like, dude, she's going to die eventually anyway. I know, I'm sorry. Anyway, so I really did enjoy it. I am on a little bit of episode 23. I will be finishing hopefully 23 and 24 in either this week or next week. So we'll hopefully wrap up and then that'll be it. So that was it. I am going to move on to filming Master's Son episodes 14 and 15. So if you're interested, hang loose for that. Otherwise, I will see you in about 1 or 2 weeks' time for the conclusion of the Gu Family book video recap. Thanks for going on this journey with me, even though this series has been over now for about 2-3 months. Until then, everyone, take care. Have a great week. Bye.